Hi! In this video, we'll be talking about combining CSS selectors. So we know that we can select elements with CSS either by tag, by class, or ID. But it turns out we can get even more specific with our selectors to select even more specific groups of elements in different ways. For example, we can actually combine the tag selector and the class selector. So here we have a CSS selector that is selecting all elements with the class logo, and it makes them italic. It's selecting .logo, so it's selecting all elements with the class logo. What we can do is actually put a tag name in front of the class with no space, so h1.logo, and what that will do is select only the h1 elements with the class logo and make them italic. So we've combined both a tag selector and a class selector to get even more specific. We're selecting all h1 elements with the class logo. We can actually combine multiple classes in the selector by repeatedly adding more periods and class names. So if we do h1.logo.important, this is selecting all h1 elements with both the class logo and the class important, and it makes them italic. So to visualize this, if we had an h1 with the class logo and an h1 with the class both logo and important, this rule would not apply to the first element and it would only apply to the second element. Now here's a trickier scenario where we're actually going to have to get pretty clever with how we combine our CSS selectors. So here we have a page with 3 different image tags. Now what if we only wanted to select these 2 image tags? We didn't want to select that top cover photo. We only want to select the cheetah and the zebra image. How can we select only these image tags? We can't use the image selector because that would select all 3. So one option is we could make a new class called paragraph image, add that class to both of these image tags, and then style that class. Or what we could do is only select the image tags that are inside of p tags. So how can we do that? How can we select tags that are inside of other tags? Well, introducing CSS combinators. So CSS combinators combine 2 simple selectors to make a more specific selector. And we'll see some examples of this. So we'll be looking at 3 different combinators. One is the descendant selector, one is the child selector, and one is the next sibling selector. Now these are interesting words to be throwing around when we're talking about CSS. So why are they called descendant, child, and sibling? Well, this all has to do with the family terminology when it comes to the HTML document. So descendants of an element are everything that is contained inside of that element. Children of an element is everything one level down, one level inside of an element. The parent of an element is the element directly above, and the siblings of an element are all the elements that share the same parent. So for example, if this was our HTML page, we have this tree structure like we talked about earlier. So in this example, we have the HTML. Inside of HTML, we have a head and a body. Inside the head, we have a title. And inside the body, we have a single h1. And it creates this tree structure like this. So if we were to add another h1 inside the body, that would then appear in our tree structure here on the same level as the other h1, but below the body tag. So this tree structure actually shows us how this family terminology comes into play. So here, these are all descendants of the HTML element. They're all underneath the HTML element in this tree because they're all inside of that HTML tag. So these are descendants of the HTML element. These are children of the HTML element because they're one level in. The things 2 level in would be grandchildren of the HTML element. So these are all descendants, these are the children, and these are the grandchildren. Similarly, we have descendants here of the body element that also happen to be children of the body element because we don't go any deeper. These h1 tags are one level in from the body. And we say that the body is the parent of the h1, just like the h1 is the child of the body. And HTML is the parent of the body element. Also, since these 2 h1 elements have the same parent, they're both inside the body, these are siblings. So this is where this family terminology comes into play, and this will be important when we go to combine these CSS selectors. How can we select descendants of an element? Well, all we have to do is put a space in between 2 selectors, and we're selecting all of the descendants. So here, if we have p space image, we are selecting all image elements that are descendants of p elements. So this is only selecting image tags that are inside of p tags. So if we have this rule, this top image tag will not be selected by this CSS rule because it's not inside of a p element. Both of these will be applied by the rule. So that's how we can get at image elements that are inside of p elements. We can use the descendant selector. Just to get some more practice here, this would be all a tags that are inside of p tags. This would be all a tags that are inside of elements with the class footer. And this would be all elements with class footer that appear inside of divs. And it doesn't matter where inside of them they are. They don't have to be the immediate children. They just have to be anywhere inside. They have to be descendants of the div tag. So that's how we can use the descendant selector. Now, how can we select children? Well, to select immediate children of an element, we use the child combinator, which is just the greater than symbol. So if we have div and then the greater than symbol, then a, this is selecting all a tags that are immediate children of div tags. If they're very deep inside the div, it won't be selected, but if they're just immediate children, it will. So let's see an example of this in action. So here we have several a tags on the page. One of them is just at the top level in the body. Two of them are here right inside the div class at the first level, and then one of them is inside the p tag. So this rule, div greater than symbol a, it does apply to these two a elements because they're both children of a div element. The rule does not apply to the a tag inside of a p tag because even though the a tag inside of the p tag is a descendant, it's not a direct child. Similarly, it does not apply to the top a tag because that a tag is not a child of a div. So this is the child selector. For some more practice, we can see that this selects all h6 tags that are immediate children of div tags with the class footer. And this selects all li tags that are immediate children of the element with ID menu bar. So that's the child selector. Lastly, let's look at the next sibling selector. So the plus symbol is the next sibling selector, and we use this to select siblings. So here, if we have h1 plus h2, this is going to select all h2 tags that immediately follow h1 tags. So in this scenario, we have an h1, an h2, a p, then an h2. The rule does apply to the first h2 element because it immediately follows an h1. It does not apply to the second h2 element because it's not the next sibling. The second h2 is actually the next sibling of a p tag, not of an h1 tag. So here, only the first h2 would be affected. The second one does not get affected by the CSS rule. So to get some more practice with the next sibling selector, if we have p plus p, this selects all p tags that immediately follow other p tags. And this would select all h1 tags that immediately follow elements with the class header. All right, so that is a quick overview of the descendant selector, which is just a space, the child selector, which is the greater than symbol, and the next sibling selector, which is a plus symbol. Now let's dive in and see some examples with real code. All right, so here we are back at our giant Pacific octopus page, and I'm going to add some more specific styling to this page by using our CSS combinators that we've learned about. So first off, I want to style just the h2 tags inside of the content div. So I want this to be italic, I want this to be italic, and I want this to be italic. I don't want any of the other h2 tags to be affected, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the descendant selector to only style the h2 tags that are inside of the content div. So if I go over to style, I'm going to style h2 tags, but not all h2 tags. I'm going to style h2 tags that are descendants of the content class. We could even say the div with class content. And so if we do this and we give it the font style of italic, we run this, awesome, we see that it worked. They're inside the content div, so they all got affected by the rule. Now, second, I want to add some dividers between each section. So what I want to do is put a border on top of the h2 tags that come after p tags. So I don't want a border here, but I want a border here and here. So what I can do is only style the h2 tags that come after p tags. This one does not come after a p tag, it comes after an h1. So to do that, I'm going to say p, the next sibling, h2. So h2 tags that are the next sibling of p tags will get the following style. I want a border on top of the h2. So if I go over to docs and check out the border, these are all the borders we can add. So I'm going to go ahead and add a border on top. I need to set the border top color. Let's go ahead and set that to be gray. The border top width, let's set that to be 2 pixels, and the border top style, which we can see here, has a couple of special values we can give: solid, dotted, dash, double. Let's go ahead and give it a solid border. So if we do this and run that, there we go. This one does not have a border because it does not follow a p tag, but this one has a border and this one has a border. So that's how we can use the next sibling selector to add some more specific style. Now let's go ahead and use a child selector as well. So let's say I want to style this a tag to be a little bit bigger than the rest of the text. If we see that A tag on the actual HTML document, we see that it is the child of a P tag. So what we can do is say, okay, if it's an A tag that is the child of a P tag, P child selector A, I'm going to give it a font size of, let's give it 16 pixels. So if you run this, there we go, we see it got bigger. Now, let's say it wasn't an immediate child. What if we added an extra div here? So now it's the child of a div, not the child of a P. We see that the style no longer applies. So this only applies to children of P tags. And there we go. So that is how we can use the CSS combinators to add even more specific style to our web pages. Now it's your turn to dive in and give it a try.